morning, everyone. Welcome to the Wealthy Retailer Podcast. I'm Dan Holman, your host here for the week of March 4th.
Happy
Deep
March.
into spring, man. Rob, how you doing?
Ready to get going. Happy March, I've been saying to people, like just kind of trying to set the tone right. And some great headlines this week. This week made me think, Dan, of, there's a lot about being prepared.
Yep.
I don't know if I ever shared this line with my little guy. Grade one he just starts school. He's in grade one. Teacher gives the kids a project. Okay, kids, good luck. And Finn, he's a little character. This guy shoots his hand up. Yes, Finn, What is it? Luck is for the unprepared, he says. And, I'm a believer in a little bit of luck, but a bigger believer in the being prepared. And definitely we got some headlines this week that speak to that, including one talking about, getting your retail store hyper-published. I like that term. It really, framed up the thinking there. Yeah. Love this as well. Story about a young entrepreneur and just, showing how she's getting into the business and kind of speaks to just so many ways to get into retail these days. Another story about 7 trends in retail transformation and innovation in 2021. So lots of stuff to get prepared for. And a story about a bootstrapped organization where the founder is still very much the face and driving force of the company, and looking forward to that. And of course, those retailers keep throwing you some questions, and I know you always have some solid answers. So we're going to dive into those too. Okay, Dan, what do we say? The story number 1 comes from entrepreneur.com. Headline talking about, how to overcome the perfect storm that has hit the physical stores and some of the things that they can do. What were your thoughts here?
Yeah, this was a good article. And I Rob, when I saw this on the list, I thought, man, this is reading weird, a bit weird. And I found then that it was translated. The author is Federico Brunet. Or Brunet. He owns Brunet Associates in Guadalajara, Mexico. And he's an entrepreneurial consultant for the insurance industry. This guy, Federico, is a well sought after speaker in many sales forums. And what I really liked about this article was his connection to brick and mortar or physical stores. Yep. And how they're tied to, they receive consequential traffic from anchor tenants in their developments or in their plazas. And he really spoke to what has hit retail in these developments the hardest is the lack of traffic, because people aren't going to the cinema. They're not going to, obviously, food and beverage in most places in the country. They're just kind of getting that restarted again. Yep. And it was his unique perspective on how we in brick and mortar retail live consequentially to that person stopping for dinner, stopping at the grocery store, catching a flick, or doing something that's really driven by that anchor tenant. And funny enough, we don't have to be in the same plaza as that anchor, but when we're in that same vicinity, our traffic is challenged. And we know, Rob, we've talked about this many times. Traffic is 1/3 of the sales volume formula. Traffic times conversion times average sale equals your sales volume. And he is on point. Federico is on point in this article. Retailers need to be ready, prepared, and on our game, driving our own traffic. He goes on to share his 5 tips or strategies for influencing traffic in your store. And I just picked my favorite 3, but we'll share this article in this week's newsletter at retailbycrs.com. So you can check out all 5. You can do some of your own translation, spin some words around, kind of just as how I've done it, to sort of highlight his message here. And number 1 was presence in digital media. And I talk about digital persona with retailers on a regular basis. We have to maintain this digital persona. And we're not talking here about advertising. We're talking about presence, being present. Today, more than ever, it's vital for every retail business to be hyper-published. Hyperpublished means to have your business geolocated on Google and Apple with contact numbers, hours of operation, updated hours of operation, etc. We need to have active social engagement. We need to be at least, at minimum, on Facebook, Instagram, and the all forgotten for retail LinkedIn. I can't tell you, Rob, how many retailers I talk to on a daily basis that have no LinkedIn profile. And if they do have a LinkedIn profile, it's their personal. They've not connected a business page. And on their profile, they don't speak to who they are. And this, as we're going to find out as we roll through this article, is critical about identifying who you are, what you are, your geo-demo and psychographic, because that's how customers connect with you. And so you do have to have these live, active, updated, video content driven social platforms. And the budding, the new, the early adopters are going to be big TikTok fans. They're going to be having Facebook Lives and maybe using a Facebook portal, great new device from Facebook in their stores. And this is key in driving traffic. It allows people to see who you are. And Rob, it feeds into number two. Federico's number two tip or strategy is to be unique. A reminder, be unique. Today more than ever, your offer of uniqueness and differentiation is critical to your success, to your store's success. It used to be back in the day. Don't we love saying that? Back in the day.
Way back when.
Back in the day, it was about the best price, the best quality, the best location, and that was enough, Rob, for the sales success formula. I had the best price in town, I offered the best quality in that product, and I was on the best corner selling my wares, and that really drove business. Today's consumer is not price, location, and sometimes quality driven. They are personality driven. They are values driven. They are experience driven. And in today's, we see examples of this every day in our world where consumers flock to, follow, like, share, preach, they become ambassadors for businesses that share their personality, their value system, and their uniqueness, which sometimes definitely includes vulnerability. Yep. And we're going to talk later about an article that was about vulnerability that has seen a bootstrap business grow to be on track to $100 million in revenue. And it was about vulnerability. Yep. And we've seen customers, attracted to the retailers that have this ability to make a personal connection with her clientele, whether virtually or in person. And the list of retailers that are doing a great job just in our little local area it takes more than a foolscap page, man. A lot of retailers are doing a good job, and more of us need to be watching what's happening in the community and watching people flock to. We talked about retail cult last week or the week before with Lizzie in California. And this is the same thing. We're creating this cult-like audience that follows me, that buys from me, that loves and believes in me and supports me through all of the ups and downs that retail is. Yeah. The third thing that I had to grab onto here was about data mining. Federico talks that, we need to build, manage, and maintain a customer database. And the same way that we mine data from our inventory performance to help us determine what and when to buy something, we need to mine our customer data to help determine who we should call, when we should call them, how we should reach out to them, what we should offer, what things are complementary to the vendors, to the styles, to the brands that they like today. Your customer database contains so much gold in it. Yeah. Client outreach and making a personal connection to that client comes from you maintaining a good database. And if you're not using a I'm going to use CRM, Canadian Retail Management, Customer Relationship Management. If you're not using a tool to help do that, if it's not contained within your point of sale system, you've got to come up with another strategy. And sure enough, the guys over at CRS can certainly, guys and girls at CRS can certainly help talk you through that. So
I really like on that first part, that Hyperpublished, that just a reminder to folks before you even get to how am I unique, how do I stand out, you need to be found, and that's simple. The address and the hours, and ensuring, put your customer hat on for a moment, and how are they going to go looking for you? Are they just saying it to Alexa and Siri? What's the address or their GPS? And so just
and she gets that from Google. She gets it from Google more frequently than she gets it anywhere else. And we say, hey Google, where can I buy ... near me?
Yeah.
Right. And not being, we've talked about local search engine optimization in the past, Rob. And this hyper digital, I might use this word, being hyper published, going forward. And that's just making sure that your services are published and available so that you can be found. Totally. People would rather drive. Convenience is very important. Yeah. But so is supporting my local community. And so I not shop at Amazon if I can get it at Visions, or I can get it at.
Yeah. And they want to know, we talk about disruption of hours specifically too, and definitely making sure your hours are right. I really, they'll come, but gosh, if, I just haven't updated my hours, now you've wasted my time.
I've been too busy to update my hours.
Yeah, totally.
I don't have time.
Great reminder for everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, Dan, into our next story coming from the Merritt Herald, talking about this young lady, Katie Huber, and her passion about fashion, dreamed of owning her business one day, and she's kicked it off. Rusty Lily, an online women's clothing boutique store. Yep. What jumped out at you?
Yeah. Merritt, BC, on the map today, with this little bit of a feel-good story for Katie Huber's current, about her current retail journey. And I think that it's a retail journey that a lot of retailers can relate to. She's always been passionate about fashion and dreamed, this is what we do, she dreamed about one day owning her own business. She is I think by proper definition, a chairside assistant in a dental office. She's put her educational path on hold through COVID and chasing her dream right now. Yep. And so she was going to Vancouver, to college in Vancouver, or school in Vancouver, to become a dental hygienist. And she kind of put that on hold to follow this dream of opening her own retail store. And she decided to combine her pursuit of fashion or style and being in business, and launched Rusty Lily, which is just, like you said, an online women's clothing boutique that caters to what she calls the fashionista, young and old, from teen to elder, which I'd say to Katie, let's try to narrow that down. We're not all things to all people. And I any retailer that's ever had a conversation with me will know I've said, no, your client is not 13 to 93. You may have clients that are 13 and clients that are 93, but your client fits in that same little box. Right, she is the same geodemo and psychographic. And so what Katie's really done is curated her style. It shares, Rob, her the challenge of juggling, ordering, stocking, selling, shipping of her curated collection alongside her regular job as an assistant in a local dental clinic in the Valley. And a little later, we'll talk about that juggle in our retailer questions. And this story really, for me, highlighted, there is a juggle, but with the power of support from family and friends, and more importantly, the support of the business community, we can follow our passion and start exploring our own style and our own retail dream or business dream. And I'm going to ask you, how many times, Rob, do you think we're going to hear or read this exact same story in the next 2 years? Yeah. People are going to flock to feed their passions, and it will no longer become about money.
So if you got to chat with Katie for 5 minutes today, would that be kind of the first thing you talk to her about, to try to zero in more on the persona of her buyer?
Yeah, I would start to ask her questions about what her assortment looks like. But, Rob, the first thing I ever ask anyone is, talk to me about your customer. Tell me who your customer is. And anytime someone says, well, it's grandma to granddaughter, it's 10 to 25 and to 95, I say, well, that may be so. You may have those customers, but let's do this. Let's close your eyes. Let's stand in the back of your store where no one can see you. And I want you to visualize the people that walk through your front door. Now, for Katie, this is going to be more challenging because she's been pushed online, not into pop-up today because of the pandemic. But that doesn't mean she doesn't have insights. So for that brick and mortar retailer that Katie will someday be, I'm going to say, stand at the back of the store, close your eyes and visualize those customers that walk in. And I guarantee you 6 out of 10 can fit into the same, 9 words sentence. They're the same geo, demo, and psychograph. They come from the same place. They have the same affluence, level of affluence, and they're the same type of person. They're the same personality, almost personality type.
Well, that's great. And, folks, this podcast is brought to you by Canadian Retail Solutions. And Dan, we've been talking the last little bit here about developing more of those, that initial discovery with retailers. And Katie's an amazing example of that, where, that creating this pathway in of being able to show these retailers, these passionate, these artists, and always talking about how your team comes in with the math and the science. But folks, if you're at that stage, or if you're a little further along, or you feel, maybe I do need to have that conversation of just, really looking at my business as a whole, rather getting caught in all the day to-dos, which again, you said we're going to be chatting about in a bit here. But head to retailbycrs.com, folks, from the latest point of sale software, merchandise intelligence, open to buy plans, and more. They are there to help, and help they will. Okay, sir. Next story. Now we get into, we're talking about some of the trends we're going to see in retail, the digital transformation, and more importantly, some of the innovation. What stood out to you in this story, Dan?
Well, this comes from Retail Dive. Retail Dive is one of my favorite sources for good, relevant news. And today they're sharing their top 7 trends in retail digital transformation and innovation for 2021. Again, we're going to share this link in our newsletter over at retailbycrs.com. Make sure you click and sign up so you get it. And you can read all 7 in detail. But here's their list just quickly. They talk about touchless interactions, and the touchless experience are safe, physical, contact-free interactions across the customer's entire shopping process. And it's now an embedded expectation among your customer base. And retailers need to include sanitization process and in their operation, along with convenient and hygienic ways to research, purchase, and consume goods. This is, curbside pickup, contactless payment, your cleaning process, this touchless environment. It does not mean that customers do not want your guidance in their store, whether physical or digital store. That they want touchless experience, not communicationless experience. Let's say that.
Yeah.
Number 2 on their list was fulfillment execution. Fulfillment. Man, Rob, we've talked about this so much, how important fulfillment is. And fulfillment execution enables excellence, in fulfilling across your operation, whether it's physical or digital. And you need to have real-time analysis and the ability to reconfigure, re-merchandise, replan inventory, labor, and process. In turn, that optimized inventory and unified customer experience will increase customer satisfaction, and that will contribute to the profitability of your business. You have to understand what it means to fulfill someone's expectation, whether that be their physical, emotional, or their real fulfillment via product. Number 3, for us, Rob, it's like a home run. They call it algorithmic merchandising optimization. And
it probably scares the poop out of everyone.
Right.
just hearing that, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
right.
Yeah.
Algorithmic merchandising optimization. And it's really simple to break this down. Inventory is a retailer's largest single expense. It is their biggest asset and their greatest liability. And escalating operational costs by the shifting consumer expectation are driving this renewed focus on merchandise assortment planning, merchandise buying planning, how we buy, what we hold, when we hold it, and how we price goods to sell. Retailers can no longer afford to spread inventory evenly across all stores or all categories in their store. They've got to leverage technology. They've got to leverage, as you talked about earlier, Rob, science. Let data help you be a better buyer, a better merchant, a better merchandiser, and increase profitability in your store. It's far too easy for a retailer to buy really wide, to try to fit a really wide audience when their data tells them to be narrow and deep. And using merchandise planning, of course, I'm going to mention, there's no better inventory planning tool on the planet than what Management One offers through its Retail Orbit platform. And it's critical to a retailer's success today. And retailers that are not using science to plan their purchasing are struggling. They're not realizing the financial opportunities that they could be. Okay, off my little soapbox. Their number 4 was associated enablement and effectiveness. Again, they're always using these great big words, but really it's about a great customer experience hinges on a great associate, a great stylist experience. And this makes retail store associates, I'm going to use that term really broad. I know that's not what we always call them, but we're going to say that this makes that retail sales associate the key competitive differentiator in your store. And to that end, your frontline worker must become your most significant investment.
Yeah.
It takes energy, it takes coaching, it takes training, and it takes hiring the right people for your business. Number 5 for them was collaborative ecosystems. Again, big words, collaborative ecosystems. We've talked lots about collaboration over competition. Significant changes, Rob, that are happening in consumer behavior and purchase patterns are driven by this crazy COVID crisis that we're experiencing. And it has weakened traditional retail business models, and engaging in collaborative efforts through partnerships with other retailers and other technology platforms, other non-competitive businesses or other marketplaces will enable sustainability in your retail business. Number 6, cost optimization. Cost optimization is a business-focused, conscious discipline that works to drive spending, merchandise planning, and cost reduction, knowing your break even, benchmarking your expenses, creating that budget, maximizes the business value. And it's increasingly important for a retailer to manage under the extreme economic uncertainty. We've got to know where our break even is. And then we benchmark our expenses to know when we're high, when we're low, when we should be investing a little more, spending a little more, or spending less to maintain black. I mean, I tell you what your break even is, but I never want you to hit break even. You've got to exceed break even. That's your reward at the end of the day. That's what gets you a better hamburger at the restaurant, man. And then number 7 for Retail Dive was values-driven consumption. Consumers expect retailers to act with honesty, integrity, and transparency. And honesty and integrity are 2 completely different things that we often confuse to be synonymous, right? Integrity is when your words and your actions are aligned with your vision, right? With your intention.
And communicating it. And we talked about putting that out there, because you'll find those like-minded customers that they create just this full alignment.
We talked about this with Federico's article. It was about uniqueness. It was about being honest and transparent. And we're going to talk about it again with Cynthia, the farm girl, and how being unique and being honest and being transparent, even if that meant vulnerable, moves the needle forward for us.
Right on. Okay. Well, let's jump then. Let's take that as our little segue.
Right.
You said farm girl. I want to hear this story, Dan. So talking about coming from retailwire.com and what really stood out, obviously, this bootstrapped operation on track to hit $100 million in sales during the pandemic, and how they attribute so much of the company's success to her authenticity, transparency, integrity, and how she remains clearly the face and the driving force of the company.
100%.
What jumped out here?
Well, I'm going to give credit to Patricia Waldron, who is the contributing editor at Retail Wire. She's the founder and CEO of Vision First, which is an advisory firm that helps companies stand out in a crowded market. And again, Retail Wire, Rob, is one of those places I go for my relevant information. Yeah. Sometimes inspiration, sometimes news. It's like Retail Dive. They're sharing good, relevant information. And Retail Wire does that for me. And this article was really well written by Patricia. I shouldn't need to say that. Obviously, she's got great penmanship here when it comes to authoring these articles. But she really talks about this power behind authenticity, integrity, and transparency. And she shares the story of Farm Girl, is the name of the company, an eco-conscious company developed with the mantra that it's a place the founder, her name's Christina Stembel, would want to buy from, sell to, and work for. Business decisions, even painful ones like pandemic furloughs, are freely communicated with her customer base. And when surveyed during the pandemic, customers rated the company, not its flowers or service, as the number one reason they shopped at Farm Girl. And during this last 12 months, here we are, Rob, a week outside of the anniversary.
You're baking a cake for us next week, aren't you?
During this last 12 months, Christina has kept her customer updated on the real-time business challenges through the pandemic with frequent blogging, videos, extended video posts, and direct communication to the customer. And when the dust settled after the first wave of the pandemic, the customers asked her to maintain, to continue that pace, to continue sharing. And today she does that every single week. She updates on the happenings, and authenticity, being authentic, being transparent, and integrity, making sure that your words and your actions are aligned with your intentions, are reasons consumers shop. And Farm Girl's crazy good results are proof that standing up for something can truly help customers stand out in any year. And as you said, this is a store that's on track to hit $100 million. And how she expanded the business and how she had to pivot and her willingness to change, to do something different. Instead of being US-based supply, she went to the global market. And you read in this story, customers buy arrangements from her without ever knowing what's in the arrangement. They have the faith, and the belief that it will be beautiful.
Something good will be in there. Yeah. Right on. Well, especially picking up from the last story, item number 7, about that being value driven and how to stand out. I know people struggle with I want to stand out, I want to be different, I don't know how to do that. And I'd say, well, start with being you. Just talk about what's important to you, what you value, what you like, and sincerely trust me, and lo and behold, you will start connecting with that audience that values the same thing. And boy, you're on a whole different pedestal compared to the competitors who are still trying to beat you based on price and product.
100%. And Rob, the best thing you said was start by being yourself. Start sharing who you are. Gone are the days of the entrepreneur hiding in the back office, you need to be upfront with your retailer. Pardon me, with your consumer. And you've got to be you. And in today's world, they want to connect with you. And that doesn't mean you've got to be putting your personal life out on display, but you have to put your personality out on display. You have to put your value system, your belief system out on display. And it is okay to be vulnerable.
Yeah, right on. Okay, I don't want to say it's being vulnerable, but it's definitely not being afraid to put out what is challenging you today as a question of the week to Dan. Dan, you're getting some good ones. Tell us about the question that you got this week.
This question, Rob, I got 3 questions in email. I jumped on a call after the podcast aired on Thursday last week. Somebody said, hey, I just power listened to 5 of your podcasts.
Nice.
And I'd love to chat with you. I sent them a calendar link and we had a great conversation on Saturday morning. It was 7:30 his time, 8:30 my time. And we had a really great conversation and I answered that question. And so I didn't pick one of the other questions that came. I took this question that came directly from a retailer in a conversation I was having with her.
Okay.
And it's a retailer in Ponoka, Alberta, who's struggling with everything she needs to do and all the hats she has to wear. And let's remember, we talked about that with Katie Huber and Rusty Lilly. You know, she's doing everything. And that's really what's going on. And this retailer says to me, well, how am I supposed to get all of this done? I'm managing my store, my team, the buying, the social posts, the bills, the da-da. And I said, hey, hang on a second. This is all about time management. This is all about you needing a personal assistant. And this challenge, Rob, is synonymous with every solopreneur out there. They deal with this every day. And it comes down to how they manage their time. I've been there. I have been the worst operator. And a coach I was working with in early 2000 shared a system of personal organization with me that I still employ, I still utilize, and I coach it on a daily basis. And believe me, it's way easier today than it was 20 years ago to have a personal assistant.
A lot of amazing tools available today. Yeah.
And I know, I say even to my own team, I don't ever want to hear I don't have time. Capacity is something that we build inside us. Capacity is about how we prioritize things. And Rick Stark was the CEO of Profit Systems at this back in 2000. And I believed wholeheartedly in coaching and consulting back then. And we employed their coaching services, and they provided us our point of sale technology, our retail coaching, our sales coaching. And I worked closely with Lee Rochelle, who was sort of our data inventory consultant, operational type consultant, and a woman named Tony Lester, who we worked hard with on our selling system and creating our own documented selling system. And their CEO, Rick Stark was his name, said to me one time at a buying show, man, you're a poster child for somebody that can get shit done, but nobody likes you. You know, you're frazzled, you're all over the place, and I wasn't a poster child for getting stuff done. I was a great procrastinator. And maybe on the surface, it looked like things were running tickety-boo, but they weren't. Yeah. Things weren't getting done. It was because I sucked at time management. And he said to me, Dan, several years ago, someone shared this porgy with me, this personal organization strategy with me, and I'd like to share it with you. I'm not going to charge you for it, but it's going to take some time from you, and you're going to need to give me that time. And I was all in. I was, up like this in the water, nose sometimes out of the water, most of the time underwater, barely surviving. And so I reached out to that lifeline, and Rick said to me, we're going to meet at 4 p.m. on Sundays. We're going to spend 45 minutes to an hour together, and we're going to get you organized. Well, it turns out 4 p.m. for him was 5 p.m. for me. So it was right at my dinner hour on Sunday afternoons. And I met with Rick for about 3 months every single Sunday. And the commitment I made to him was I will be there at 4 o'clock your time every Sunday. And the agreement was that if I wasn't there, the relationship ended and he stopped. And this is how it went. Rick taught me how to look forward in my week and plan out everything I had to do and diarize it, put it in a calendar. And when I say it was a whole lot easier, it's a whole lot easier now than 20 years ago. Now, everything goes into my calendar as an appointment. My podcast prep time is in my calendar as if it was an appointment. It's not a task. It's not a to-do, and everything. So for this retailer, I talked about the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start by making a list of everything you do every single day for the next week. Yep. And we're going to write everything down, and right behind it, we're going to write down how much time you dedicated to that task. And then we're going to add on the bottom of the list, all the things you shouldn't have done, that you should have done, pardon me, that you didn't do.
Okay.
And now we're going to build.
I have no time for.
Yeah, that I don't have time for. And it turns out when we start to go through that list, a lot of things are the same. And, you know, being a guy that spent most of his life in that retail world, I loved being on the retail floor. But you know what that means when you walk out onto your floor? Nothing else gets done. Yeah. Nothing else gets done. And so I had to, with Rick's help, strategically plan when I was going to meet with a vendor, when I was going to be on the floor with staff, when I was going to have free time that I did whatever I wanted, when I was going to get my hair cut, when I was going to go and play golf. And he made me use a shared calendar that he could see, that all my staff could see. And, you know, back in the day, we were just starting with, you know, Microsoft with Outlook, which it wasn't Outlook back then, and Lotus 123. I mean, that was our spreadsheet products, you know. And so, you know, we were in Waterloo, Ontario, so we were BlackBerry users. We always had the first BlackBerry, the big black one that, you know, was kind of like a DOS smartphone. It wasn't super smart, but it became my personal assistant. It told me when to do something and when I needed to be prepared to be somewhere. Nowadays, if I have to go to a client in Stony Plain and it takes me 30 minutes to get there, my reminder comes up and says 30 minutes before you need to leave for your appointment with Tracy. And this really is how we get so much done. And it seems like it's this block of structure, but it really is how entrepreneurs, how retail leaders need to operate their life. That doesn't mean they don't have freedom in their life. It means that they need to be better organized. Before you can ever let go of the vine and let someone else lead your team, you need to lead. And you lead people not by go as I say, but by go as I go. If you look like this, you know, unorganized, ditzy, you know, chasing squirrels all the time. If you look like my good friend Stan West, if your head's always in the clouds, this isn't going to work for you. You've got to have good structure. And that was one of the things, you know, Stan West and I still have a very good relationship. He was the visionary in our business and I was the integrator. He dreamt up crazy stuff and I figured out how to make it happen. But it was because I learned how to structure my day. It doesn't mean I do less. I have more freedom today than I have ever had, but it's because I'm more structured, not because I work less.
Do you schedule that freedom, Dan?
100%, 100%. Yeah. I schedule clarity breaks. We've talked about clarity breaks. Yeah. And I put a clarity break in my calendar. And I have this, and I don't expect everybody to work the way I do, but this is the habit that I employed. Rick taught me how to do that. He did it with me every Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific time and 5 p.m. my time, or 4 p.m. Central. I was Eastern time. And so he was always sort of an hour earlier than I was. And to this day, on Sundays, I lay out my calendar. And I shared with Terry, you know, I have these 5 things that I do every Sunday morning, and it starts at 8 o'clock. Number 1 is pour a Bailey's and coffee. And I sit down and I consume a bit of news. I do a little social stuff, and then I knock off my Sunday morning to-dos, which is really aligning my calendar for the next week. And this happens even when I'm on vacation. It's what I do. Yeah. And it might be a whole week of nothing to do, but I look at my calendar every Sunday morning and look what the week has in store for me. And I move things, I adjust things. I work with clients on a calendarized basis. Their time is way more valuable than my time. And so nothing is ever left to chance. I say I'm going to be there at 7:00. I'm there at 5 to 7, even when they show up at 5 after 7. I respect that they're dealing with all kinds of things. And here I sit today in front of the screen waiting for them.
Yeah,
right? But it's the structure that allows us to get things done. Forever, business coaches have said you cannot teach time management. Time management is something that's inherent in someone, their abilities, and it's just not true.
Yeah.
You can use tools to become a much better time manager. And I'm going to say, for any retailer out there that is struggling with time management, that's struggling with the ta-da, just spend 15 minutes with me on the phone, and I will help you. No, just go on my calendar and book me. Send an email to dan@thewealthyretailer.com, and I will give you a little bit of guidance to help you. Let's get rid of the 5 different emails you have. There should be one place for communication to come and go. And every one of your team members should know where you are and when you should be bothered, when you shouldn't, what task you're working on. And it just simply means we're putting it on our calendar. And we build office time, task time in our calendar that allows us to have that fun stuff, that fun time on our store floors.
Yeah. I have a question. When Rick worked with you, and even the recent call you had, where do you start? Like, and honestly, is this a 40-hour work week? Is this no, we're dealing with the entrepreneur's 80-hour work week? What's your approach?
Well, Rob, when I was
trying to build structure into it,
when Rick offered this to me, I was probably working 60 hours a week.
Okay.
And I still work a lot, but I work differently now. I work smarter now than I ever did. And I am a bit of an early riser most days. So most days I'm at my desk, before the sun comes up. Even in Alberta, most days I'm at my desk before the sun comes up in the summertime. And I get a lot of things done before other people get going. But that also affords me the opportunity to enjoy the latter part of the day as I want to, whether that's on a store floor, hanging out with somebody, or playing golf. And it's because I've got my to-do list done. And so how do we start? Again, it's about writing down everything that you do every day for a week and putting some time on it. And then taking that list and saying, okay, let's prioritize some things and start to lay out your calendar. In my calendar, Rob, you'll never see anything. There's exceptions to every rule, but I don't start my routine in my calendar before 8:00 in the morning. There are rare exceptions, not rare. There are exceptions for customers that I have that are on the East Coast that want to start their day with a meeting that I might meet with them at 6:00 or 5:30 in the morning. And so that's, every other week or so I end up with some of that, or, I'm going to go to a Rotary meeting, or, there's some things that happen in my calendar, but that's even in there. A Rotary meeting would be in my calendar. Going to dinner with friends would be in my calendar. Going camping on the weekend with my family is going to be in my calendar. The same way a dentist appointment or a haircut or, whatever. It's all in my calendar, and I build my life around that calendar. And I promise you, my personal assistant tells me what to do, when to do, and where to do, and it reminds me. It just means I'm accountable to my personal assistant. But guess who created it?
Yep. Accountable to your own plan. Yeah.
Right. I've created that plan. And it doesn't mean, Rob, that there's not scalability and movability and adjustment, adaptability built inside it. That's why I look at it every Sunday morning and every morning. I get a little Slack message with my day's events. And it's like, whoa, shit, I forgot I had to do that today. Yeah. There's no way I'm going to get that done. I got to find a better spot in my calendar. Yeah. It takes me an hour to get somewhere. I've got to plan that. And there'll be often times where I don't want to touch my phone when I'm driving. And not for the safety reasons, but that, I'm not going to talk on it. I'm going to take that as a bit of a clarity moment.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to put the music on loud, and it's just going to be me.
Nice. I love that point. And I would say, what a great sales line too. Like, you'll be amazed at the freedom you will get by putting this type of structure into your life. So,
and Rob, at the time I was managing, a pretty big audience. We had 140 or 150 employees. There was a lot of shit going on, and I really needed that guidance at that time. And I'm not saying that to say that, you, the solo entrepreneur, doesn't need this. I'm saying if you struggle with your task list, with your getting your to-dos done, let's talk about it. Let's talk strategy. Ta-da!
Love it. Right on. Hey man, lots of good stories. Yeah. And I think I can bookend this by saying luck is for the unprepared.
For the unprepared. That's right.
Folks, if you haven't yet, head to retailbycrs.com, sign up for the newsletter. We'll have the links for all of the stories we talked about today, as well. A few more stories that we didn't quite have time to, but nonetheless, I'm sure you'll find interesting. One about Stripe and Squarespace integrating Afterpay installment payments. Something to look at there. More TikTok expanding their integration into e-commerce, and that will always be of interest as we keep looking down the road. Elle's Closet, that's come on the radar. That was a great little story about their major expansion plans for this small town Alberta retail success.
And hey, story. Rob, this is an example of someone who is authentic, who just puts herself out there. We've talked about Michelle and her ability to just be her.
Yeah.
And that's, you got to love that about a retailer. And I
love that. And spoiler alert, but when this little small town retailer is talking about getting a 10,000 square foot warehouse to fulfill what they're doing, that's pretty cool.
It's a great art. It's totally inspirational. It's in that newsletter. People got to join that. They got to get that newsletter. You got to read it.
And this next story, look at the story. Look at me. Look at this story. Remember the Old Spice guy? I love this one. They opened their own barber shop. You can believe it. And, it's going to be fully functioning. But here again, it's all falling into their content bucket. They're actually building a studio into this barber shop and
so do their own stuff. Yeah,
interesting for everyone to check out there. But good stuff, Dan?
Yeah, for sure. And retailers, business people, doesn't have to be a retailer. I'm open to chat with anybody. But if you have a question that's burning, that just you're not sure what the answer is, just send an email to dan@thewealthyretailer.com. I promise to answer the question. Whether we do it on the podcast or not, you'll always get that personal response from me. Keep fighting the good fight, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Right on. Subscribe to that podcast. Leave us a review if you can. And folks, have a great week.